From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains. Today's episode will focus on a daring at-sea rescue conducted by Reuben Nelson, who lived in this house. Captain Reuben Nelson. A house that's in the vacant lot behind me. It's no longer standing. It's an interesting story, a great tale of heroics and rescue by Reuben and an accompanying airline pilot, flying an old DC-3, who lived in Tippecanoe. I think you'll enjoy it. This is one of many tales of rescue by Bayview's lake captains. They saved many, many lives. Actually, they saved thousands of lives. And that episode will be coming up. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed it. We're on Mound Street. And next time you're out walking your dog, stop by and take a look and remember the rescue that Reuben Nelson made.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Reuben Nelson, who lived on Mound Street. As a fisherman, he sailed out at night into a huge storm to rescue a fellow fisherman whose boat's engine had quit and was in great danger out on Lake Michigan. Captain Nelson was guided to the location by an airline pilot circling over the boat in danger, who coincidentally happened to live in Tippecanoe, which adjoins Bayview to the south. Very little is known of Captain Reuben D. Nelson, other than one newspaper article on 16th January 1948. In that article, he is captain, aged 25, of the fishing boat Hawks, and he sailed out at night in a gale with 10-foot waves to rescue the crew of another fishing boat, the 35-foot-long Regina, whose engine had quit and was many hours overdue in port. It was stalled 5 miles offshore from Cudahy. Its crew were all from Sturgeon Bay, but had come down to Milwaukee to live for the winter fishing season. Captain Nelson lived at 2260 South Mound Street at the time with his wife Lillian. It's unknown if they had any children, or how long they lived on Mound Street, as there is no record of him beyond the news report. His brother, Roy, of 421 East Bay Street, was aboard the Hawks with him, and was the owner of the Hawks when it went to the rescue. Captain Nelson was aided in his search to rescue the Regina by an airline pilot with Capital Airlines, C.W. Fairchild, who was en route from Detroit to Milwaukee in most likely a DC-3. He had been alerted by radio to look for the missing boat when over the lake, approaching Milwaukee Airport. Not a high-flying jet like today, the DC-3 flew usually just a few thousand feet high, and was slow, perfect for using in a visual maritime search like this, though it was night. In darkness, the crew on the Regina heard Fairchild's plane approaching and started blinking their flashlights at it, and also lighted a large bucket of fuel oil as a distress signal. Fairchild spotted the lights and circled them, then departed. While the men on the fishing boat weren't sure if their frantic lights had been successful or not, unbeknownst to them, Fairchild had alerted authorities by radio that he'd found the boat and its location. Then he went on to land in Milwaukee, and then on to his home. He was almost a bay viewer, like Reuben Nelson, but Fairchild just missed it. His home was in Tippecanoe, at 4611 West Wilbur Avenue. At 9:30 that night, aided by the position report provided to him through channels from C.W. Fairchild, Bayview's lake captain Reuben Nelson set out in the storm and freezing cold. Remember, this was in January, to try to help his fellow fishermen. He succeeded, getting a line to Regina and towing it into the shore. Reuben Nelson bought the Hawks from Brother Roy in 1950, and appears to have continued sailing it until 1956, when he sold it to another party. There's no record, however, of where Reuben lived before or after the aforementioned rescue in 1948, nor any information on what happened to him later.
Hello again, everyone. Today I'm standing in front of Captain Frederick Engbring's house. He lived here in 1906, and that's the only thing we have of him. Not much is known beyond that, but I'll pass it over to Simon Stanhope, our narrator, to share what we do have. Over to you, Simon.
Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Frederick Engbring. Almost nothing is known about him. Not only are his birth and death dates unknown, but the ship or ships he captained are also unknown. Then how, you the listener might ask, can we be sure he was a Bayview lake captain? Shouldn't he be in the honourable mention appendix on this channel, instead of reported here as a confirmed captain? No, and here's how it was determined that he should make the cut. There is one Frederick Engbring listed as a lake captain living at 2253 South Mound Street in 1906 in the Milwaukee City Directory. That's it. One entry. Nothing before or after in any other source. The only other find that comes closest to him was a Robert Frederick Engbring, who was born in 1894, and could not have been him, because that would have made him just 12 years old when he was listed as a captain in the 1906 directory. However, because other family members are documented as being connected with the maritime profession, they bring credibility to the single report on Frederick Engbring's lake captain status. Here is that reporting. In that same year, in the same 1906 City Directory, showing Frederick Engbring as a lake captain, there is, living with him at 2253 South Mound Street, a confirmed lake captain, though functioning as a maritime engineer at the time, named Theodore Engbring, and his son, Roscoe Engbring, a fireman. Theodore was later reported in 1910 as being a, quote, retired tugboat captain, unquote, living on Howell Avenue. Given son Roscoe's fireman position, it's possible Theodore may have actually been a fireboat captain at some point, though regardless, he was never confirmed as a lake captain when living in Bayview. The year before, 1905, Theodore Engbring's brother Henry, a lifetime maritime engineer on probable tugboats, was living with his son Arthur, a, quote, sailor, unquote, at 508 East Lincoln Avenue, which qualifies them to be on the Bayview crew list. See in Honourable Mention Appendix section. But the next year, 1906, they aren't listed anywhere. Very mysterious. In all, there are 4 members of the Engbring family that were confirmed in the maritime profession, though briefly. Theodore and son Roscoe, and Henry and son Arthur. So because of this well-documented family connection to the Milwaukee maritime industry, that is enough to confirm Frederick, even with just the one listing, as a Bayview Lake captain. Perhaps he was a cousin or other distant relative living elsewhere in Wisconsin or Michigan, and came for just the 1 year to live with his relatives, Theodore and Roscoe. It's unknown, as is the ship he captained, when he was born, his family, and when he died.
Okay folks, I'm going to have to narrate this due to close quarters. What you're looking at right now is, obviously, a large building in Bayview at the corner of Beecher Bay and KK. Looking southwest right now. What used to be located where you're looking was the house of William Hall. William Hall was a fireboat captain for the city of Milwaukee, but we don't know much about him other than that. I'll turn it over to Simon Stanhope, the narrator now, who can tell you a little bit more, but not much. Go ahead, Simon. And remember, hats off to Bayview's lake captains. Bye-bye.
Today we will be discussing the life of Captain William Hall. It's unknown where or when Captain William Hall was born, and when and where he died. All that is known is that there was indeed a Captain William Hall of the Milwaukee Fire Department's Fireboat No. 15, the Cataract, that lived at 2032 South Kinnickinnick Avenue in 1895 to 96. But before or after this, his whereabouts and ships he may have captained are unknown. Due to the sheer volume of William Halls in city directories, census reports, and all other sources to include maritime, it is impossible to determine which of them, if any, is this Captain Hall. Searches were made to try to determine a wife's name in the census reports, and searched that way, and other attempts included looking for a middle initial to confirm which of the William Halls listed were him. The results were negative. It's probable he was a schooner captain before moving to the job security and time home with the family that being a fireboat captain for the city provided. Several other Bayview Lake captains made that move. But, for the reasons mentioned above, this was not possible to confirm. Information about his family is unknown. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. In addition, this channel and its matching website also plan to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to donate to support these projects, to include this and other markers honoring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider donating to us through the listings shown next. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. That is the only surviving intact ship once captained by at least 2 and likely 3 different Bayview Lake captains. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.